For most of my life, I felt different. I thought I was different. I was too sensitive, too emotional, too intense. And then one day not long ago, one conversation changed everything. I started learning about autism in women, and suddenly my life started making sense. I have a few notes here, but y'all, I've been masking and hiding and scripting myself my entire life. So this video is not going to be scripted. If I wander off down a tangent or down a rabbit hole, just bear with me, please. I'm Kathy, the neurodivergent nurse. Describing myself, I've always felt different socially. Never been comfortable in social situations. When I'm in the room with a group of people, I feel compelled to add to the conversation somehow. But I have this dialogue going on in the back of my mind, I'm going to sound stupid. I'm going to sound, I'm going to sound like I'm not with it. I'm going to sound this, that, the other, and they're going to hate me. And then also sensory overwhelm, loud noises, trips to Disney World, something like that. I need about a 1 to 2 day recovery time. I'm exhausted after crowds. Masking. I found I rehearse conversations in my head ahead of time. Conversations, interactions, something going on at work, at home, at church, anywhere really, where I am going in to interact with other people. And even so, I will rehearse it ahead of time and then rehash in my head that same interaction later. And then, my mind starts spiraling. Oh, I should have said this. Oh, I could have done that. So you get the idea. I've also had a very deep connection with animals since early childhood. I've loved reptiles my entire life. That's been a unique hobby of mine since I was small. When most girls were scared of reptiles, I loved them. I was always in the backyard catching frogs, catching lizards, whatever reptile I could find out there. And I have a long period of being called sensitive, too sensitive, and shy. I remember my parents many times saying, oh, she's just shy. Oh, she just doesn't talk much. Things like that. I didn't realize that, constantly analyzing social interactions wasn't something that everybody did. And apparently, everyone else wasn't replaying a conversation from 12 years ago at 2 a.m. Imagine that. So, why no one caught it? You got to realize I grew up in the 1970s and the 1980s. There was a lot of stigma. There was a lot of stereotypes. I even recall when I was around 8 years old, my parents taking me to it was a man who specialized in childhood personality problems. That's the phrase I remember, personality problems. And they were troubled at that time by what was going on with me. And I discovered, not long after that, being intelligent and being compliant would get me a long way. Any kind of distress I would be feeling, I would internalize it. And so, I wasn't disruptive. I was quiet. And, for girls especially, that means we were overlooked in an autism diagnosis. Now, let's talk about becoming a nurse. I became a nurse in 1997. I was the age of 31. At that time, I had two small children, two little boys. And, I had worked hard for this degree, and I was just going to make it work. I was going to do it. When I found something that I wanted, I was very determined to make it work. It was an environment that was very chaotic versus structured, which is best for most autistic people. Why did I want to do this? I've wanted to help people. I've always had a lot of empathy and compassion for those that are hurting, for those that that need help, that cannot help themselves. In nursing, there's a lot of exhaustion from the constant interruptions, not just in a hospital environment, but definitely in the school environment that I work in now. The fluorescent lights and the noise, oh my goodness, fluorescent lights everywhere, on the ceiling, under the counters, flashing and dimming and humming, doing all those things that fluorescent lights do, as everybody knows. And I would be masking. I figured out the best way to mask would be to keep my head down, do my job, be on time. I could take care of everyone else all day long and completely ignore my own nervous system. Now, when I got my diagnosis, my first feeling was relieved. Let me back up. When I read on the chat bot the symptoms of adult autism in women, undiagnosed, when I read those symptoms, the first thing that went through my head was, oh, that explains so much. I also, the emotions that followed were grief for the little girl that I was, for the woman that I was, that went for so many decades knowing that something was wrong, something was not quite right, but I still had no idea what it was. And anger. But there was a lot of relief in that, coming back to that, because I had validation. I had clarity and peace at last. And, now I look back on my childhood differently. There was a reason why I did this. There was a reason why I did that. There was a reason why I do not like social interactions. There's a reason why I wasn't much of a person who wanted to stay up all night in high school. That just was not me. It was strange grieving for a version of yourself that never got understood. So I started this channel because I know there are many, many women out there like me. Women who spent decades thinking they were broken, thinking they were too dramatic, too sensitive, lazy, or just too much. You may not be broken. You may just finally be seeing yourself clearly. Now, if any of this resonated with you, you're not alone. And if you'd like, I'd love for you to stay here with me while we figure this out together. And we can do it together. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. And I will see all of you again soon.